George Washington took a solemn oath inside a secret room. He was one of many powerful figures throughout history drawn into the enigmatic world of the Freemasons, a brotherhood shrouded in whispers of cryptic handshakes and ancient rites. This is one of history's most famous and misunderstood fraternal orders. Today, we begin a fascinating investigation into the heart of their secret ceremonies, separating centuries of wild fiction from the surprising reality of their practices. By the end, you will understand the true purpose behind the rituals that have captivated and confused the world for generations. What are the hidden meanings behind their strange symbols, and why would a modern person still seek initiation into such an old tradition? What do you believe is the real power of a secret kept for 300 years? To understand the rituals, we must first travel back to the noisy, dusty building sites of medieval Europe. This is where the story truly begins, not with shadowy conspirators, but with skilled craftsmen. For centuries, operative stonemasons formed powerful guilds. These were more than just labor unions, they were tightly knit communities that protected trade secrets, the precise methods for cutting stone, the complex geometry of arches, the formulas for strong mortar. Membership was a serious matter, passed from master to apprentice. To prove your identity on a distant worksite, you needed more than a letter. You needed a secret word, a special handshake, signs known only to the brotherhood. This practical need for secrecy among traveling craftsmen planted the very first seed. But by the 17th century, something remarkable began to shift. Great cathedrals were no longer the primary architectural obsession. Intellectuals, philosophers, and gentlemen became fascinated by the stonemasons' ancient traditions. They saw in the tools of the trade the square, the compass, the level, not just instruments for shaping stone, but powerful symbols for shaping a man's character. What if the rough stone represented the unimproved human spirit? What if the chisel and mallet were the lessons of discipline and knowledge? These men were not operative masons, they were speculative ones. They were building not physical temples, but moral and philosophical ones within themselves. This transformation became official in the year 1717 in a London tavern. 4 existing lodges of these speculative masons came together to form the first Grand Lodge of England. This was the pivotal moment when Freemasonry, as we recognize it, was born, an organized fraternity dedicated to self-improvement through allegory and symbol. The old tools of the trade were forever reimagined. The square now reminded a man to act with honesty and fairness with others. The compass taught him to circumscribe his desires and keep his passions within due bounds. The level symbolized equality, reminding all brothers that despite differences in wealth or status, they met on the level. So the rituals we find so mysterious today did not emerge from a vacuum. They are the direct inheritance of this profound transition, where the literal craft of building walls evolved into the metaphorical craft of building a better life. This foundation in symbolism is the bedrock upon which every single Masonic ceremony is constructed. A man seeking initiation would not enter a grand cathedral or a hidden cave. He would step into a room that appears almost ordinary at first glance, yet every single element within it holds a profound symbolic meaning. This is the Masonic Lodge, a sacred and secret space deliberately constructed as a 3-dimensional textbook. The floor itself is a lesson. It is laid out as a mosaic pavement of alternating black and white squares, a stark reminder of the dualities of life, good and evil, joy and sorrow, light and darkness. It teaches that our path through existence will be checkered with both, and our duty is to navigate it with balance. Flanking the entrance stand 2 great pillars. These are named Jachin and Boaz, drawn from the biblical description of King Solomon's temple. Jachin, often interpreted to mean he will establish, and Boaz, meaning in strength, together symbolize stability and the active and passive principles in nature. They represent the idea that any worthy endeavor must be founded upon both strength and establishment, power and wisdom. At the center of the room rests the altar. Upon it lies the volume of sacred law, which in most lodges is the Bible, though it can be whatever holy book binds the conscience of the members present. This is the spiritual and moral cornerstone of the lodge, the ultimate rule and guide for a Mason's conduct. The room is oriented east to west, mirroring the sun's path. The worshipful master, the presiding officer, sits in the east, the place of light and wisdom, from where he is said to rule the lodge. Directly across from him in the west sits the senior warden, who assists in the setting of the sun and the closing of the day's labor. In the south sits the junior warden, who oversees the brethren at refreshment. This precise arrangement is not for ceremony alone. It creates a complete symbolic universe, a microcosm where every action, every step taken by a brother during a ritual, carries allegorical weight. The space itself becomes a silent teacher, reinforcing the lessons of morality, geometry, and cosmic order with every glance. Within this carefully constructed symbolic space, a profound personal journey unfolds. Freemasonry is structured around 3 core degrees, known as Blue Lodge Masonry, which form a complete allegorical path from ignorance to enlightenment. This is not a course in history or philosophy you simply read about. It is an experiential progression, a step-by-step initiation into deeper layers of self-knowledge and moral understanding. The journey begins with the degree of entered apprentice. The candidate, purposely kept in a state of symbolic ignorance, is prepared in a manner that represents his unrefined nature. He is then led into the lodge blindfolded, a powerful emblem of his spiritual darkness and his desire to seek the light. His first steps are uncertain, guided only by the assurance of the brethren. Through a solemn ceremony involving symbolic trials and a sacred obligation, he is introduced to the fundamental tools of the Mason, the common gavel, which represents the force of conscience used to knock off the rough edges of his character, and the 24-inch gauge, which teaches him to divide his day wisely between labor, refreshment, and service to God. He receives the initial signs, tokens, and words that identify him as a true seeker, having taken his first step onto that checkered floor of life. Having been introduced to the craft, the brother then advances to the second stage, the degree of fellowcraft. Here, the allegory shifts from self-preparation to the pursuit of knowledge. The blindfold is removed, and the journey is now one of conscious education. The central symbol becomes the winding staircase, often depicted with 3, 5, or 7 steps, representing the progressive stages of learning in the liberal arts and sciences. The focus turns upward, toward intellectual and spiritual illumination. The working tools of this degree are the plumb, which teaches uprightness of conduct, the level, which reminds of equality, and the square, the emblem of morality and honesty. The fellowcraft is encouraged to study the hidden mysteries of nature and science, to refine his mind as he once sought to refine his character. The culmination of this symbolic journey is the sublime degree of Master Mason. This is the most profound and dramatic of the 3, centered on a powerful allegory of fidelity, loss, and ultimate triumph. The lesson is no longer about preparing the rough stone or educating the mind, but about confronting the greatest mystery of all, the transition from life to death, and the hope of immortality. The ritual reenacts a key legend involving the search for something precious that was lost, a story every Mason pledges never to reveal in detail. Through this intense ceremony, the brother learns the ultimate secrets of the craft and is given the title and responsibilities of a Master Mason. He is now considered a complete Mason, having symbolically traveled from darkness to light, from ignorance to knowledge, and from temporal life to eternal principle. Each degree builds upon the last, using unique rituals, symbols, and passwords to impart its specific lesson. It is a transformative system designed not to confer status, but to instill wisdom through lived allegory, one solemn step at a time. The transformation from a curious outsider to a brother begins in a small, quiet room adjacent to the lodge, a space known as the preparation room. Here, the candidate undergoes a series of profound symbolic actions, each designed to strip away the trappings of the outside world and prepare him for rebirth. He is asked to divest himself of all metals, gold, silver, even coins from his pocket. This is not about material poverty, but a lesson in equality and sincerity. A man should seek admission not for worldly gain, but for the intrinsic value of knowledge and brotherhood. He is then blindfolded, or hoodwinked, plunged into a state of intentional darkness. This represents his spiritual ignorance, his inability to see the true light he now seeks. His left breast is partially exposed, a symbol of the openness and sincerity of heart required. Finally, a noose-like rope called a cable tow is placed around his neck, its length later explained to signify the limits of his personal obligations. In this vulnerable and humble state, he is ready to knock upon the door of the lodge, signaling his earnest desire for enlightenment. Led by his guide, the hoodwinked candidate is brought into the lodge room itself. He cannot see the mosaic floor or the towering pillars. He can only hear the solemn silence and feel the presence of the assembled brethren. His first journey is a circumambulation, a slow, ritualistic walking around the perimeter of the lodge. This act mirrors the sun's daily path, a symbol of the passage of time and the journey of life. With each step, he is challenged by the Tyler, the outer guardian, and then by the junior and senior wardens inside. They demand to know who he is and what he desires. His guide answers for him, stating that he is a poor, blind candidate who seeks the light of Freemasonry. This threefold journey and questioning represent the trials and self-reflection necessary for any true growth. It is a physical manifestation of seeking, a pilgrimage in miniature. After these symbolic trials, the candidate is led to the center of the lodge, facing the worshipful master in the east. The most dramatic moment of the entire ritual is about to occur. The master asks what the candidate most desires. The answer, given by his guide, is always the same, light. At this command, the hoodwink is swiftly removed. For the first time, the new brother beholds the sacred geometry of the lodge, the altar, the volume of sacred law, and the faces of the brethren surrounding him. It is a sudden and overwhelming influx of symbolic meaning, a birth into a new way of seeing. He is told that this light is but a representation of the intellectual and spiritual illumination he must now pursue. The first thing his eyes are directed to see are the three great lights of Masonry, the volume of sacred law, the square, and the compasses, which together will guide his future steps. With his sight restored, the new entered apprentice receives his first working tools, each a simple instrument loaded with profound moral instruction. He is presented with the 24-inch gauge. This is not merely a ruler, but a teacher of time management. Its 24 divisions represent the hours of the day, which he is instructed to divide into 3 equal parts: 8 hours for the service of God and a distressed worthy brother, 8 hours for his usual vocation, and 8 hours for rest and refreshment. Next comes the common gavel, the stonecutter's basic hammer. This tool is an emblem of his own conscience and will, to be used to knock off the rough edges of his passions and prejudices, to shape the rough ashlar of his own character into something smoother and more perfect. Some lodges also introduce the chisel, which, guided by the gavel's force, represents the benefits of education and friendly counsel in refining the soul. These tools are not relics of a dead trade. They are active, daily prescriptions for living a balanced, productive, and virtuous life. The ritual closes with him taking a solemn obligation of fidelity and secrecy, binding him to his new brothers and to the principles he has just begun to learn. He leaves not with a secret password alone, but with a blueprint for self-improvement, having symbolically died to his old, unenlightened self and been reborn into the search for Masonic light. Having been prepared as a rough stone, the newly made entered apprentice now faces a more demanding task, the education of his mind. The fellowcraft degree is a dramatic shift in focus, from self-preparation to active, conscious learning. The central allegory is no longer set on the flat checkered floor, but on a grand, ascending staircase. This winding staircase, often depicted with 3, 5, or 7 steps, is the ritual's most powerful image. It represents the Mason's duty to climb toward intellectual and spiritual light, to study the 7 liberal arts and sciences that were the foundation of a Renaissance education. Grammar, rhetoric, logic, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, these were seen as the tools to free the mind, hence the term liberal. And at the very heart of this curriculum, holding a place of supreme honor, is geometry. In the ritual, geometry is described not merely as a branch of mathematics, but as synonymous with Masonry itself. Why this profound connection? Because geometry is the science of form, proportion, and relationship. It is visible in the very architecture of the lodge, in the pillars, and the altar's placement. It is the invisible order behind the visible universe. To study geometry, the ritual teaches, is to contemplate the mind of the grand architect, to see the divine blueprint in the structure of a snowflake, the orbit of a planet, or the growth pattern of a shell. The Fellowcraft's journey is a pilgrimage up this staircase of knowledge, each step representing a deeper commitment to understanding the hidden mysteries of nature and science. This ascent is not a solitary climb. The candidate is guided and tested once more, but now with his eyes open, symbolizing his awakened desire to see and comprehend. The ritual reinforces that the light he received in the first degree was just a spark. He must now fan it into a flame through his own efforts. Upon reaching what is symbolically called the middle chamber of King Solomon's temple, he is introduced to the working tools of a Fellowcraft. These are not the simple implements of preparation, but the precise instruments of measurement and judgment. The first is the square. Now, you might recall the square was mentioned earlier, but here its meaning deepens. For the Fellowcraft, the square is the emblem of morality, of acting with honesty and fairness in all dealings with others. It teaches him to square his actions by the unerring rules of virtue. The second tool is the level. This simple instrument, which proves a surface to be flat and even, becomes a profound social symbol. It reminds the brother that despite distinctions of wealth, rank, or station, all men meet on the level in the lodge. It is a perpetual call for humility and a recognition of fundamental human equality. The third tool is the plumb. This is a weight suspended from a cord, used by builders to ensure a wall is perfectly vertical, true and upright. For the Fellowcraft, the plumb represents integrity of heart and rectitude of life. It is the internal compass that keeps a man's conduct straight, his intentions pure, and his character aligned with his professed principles. Together, these three tools, the square, the level, and the plumb, form a complete ethical system. They guide a man's actions toward others, his perspective of himself in society, and his own inner constitution. The Fellowcraft is sent back into the world not just with a new password, but with a mandate. He is to study, to observe, to calculate. He is to use the square of virtue in his business, the level of equality in his judgments of others, and the plumb line of integrity to check his own soul. The degree ends not with a conclusion, but with an assignment. The rough stone has been knocked into shape. Now it must be carefully measured, leveled, and made true. But this journey of intellectual and moral refinement is still not the end. A greater mystery, the most profound lesson of all, awaits the brother who proves himself worthy of the final ascent. The culmination of the Masonic journey is not a celebration, but a confrontation. The third degree, that of Master Mason, presents the brother with the most solemn allegory in the entire fraternity, the story of Hiram Abiff. According to Masonic legend, Hiram was the gifted master builder, the chief architect of King Solomon's temple, the only man who knew the complete secret of the structure. As the temple neared completion, 3 rogue craftsmen, unsatisfied with their wages and station, conspired to extract the master's secret by force. They ambushed him at the 3 entrances to the temple, the south, west, and finally the east gate. At each encounter, Hiram was asked for the secret word of a master mason. His reply was always the same. It was not to be given in such a manner, and he would rather suffer death than betray his sacred trust. At the east gate, the 3rd ruffian struck the fatal blow with a setting maul, and the master builder fell, his secret lost to the world. This narrative of fidelity unto death is the powerful engine of the ritual. The candidate, now a Fellowcraft, participates in a dramatic reenactment of the search for the lost master. The lodge is draped in symbols of mourning. The brethren, representing the faithful craftsmen, organize into search parties, scouring the symbolic landscape for any trace of Hiram. The mood is one of profound loss and urgency, for without the master's knowledge, the great work cannot be completed. The search leads them to a makeshift grave, marked only by a sprig of acacia, an evergreen plant symbolizing immortality and the enduring soul. The discovery is made, but the secret remains lost. Here, the allegory takes its most personal turn for the candidate. In a moment of intense symbolism, he is asked to figuratively take the place of the fallen master. This act, known as the raising, is the emotional and philosophical peak of Freemasonry. It is not a literal resurrection, but a symbolic one. The candidate is raised from a figurative grave by the strong grip of the lion's paw, a token of fidelity and mutual support. In that moment, he is not becoming Hiram Abiff, but is being entrusted with Hiram's legacy of unwavering principle. He learns that the true secret that was lost was not a password, but the living example of a man who valued his oath above his own life. The profound themes here are inescapable. This is a ritual about the inevitability of death, the fragility of our endeavors, and the paramount importance of our word. It asks every brother a direct, haunting question: what principle would you refuse to betray, even at the ultimate cost? But it does not leave him in the grave. The sprig of acacia offers the counterpoint, hope. The lesson is that while the physical body is temporary, the legacy of a life lived with integrity, the impact of fidelity to a just cause, is a form of immortality. The candidate is raised not just to the rank of Master Mason, but to a new understanding. He is given substitute secrets, new signs and words, but the real teaching is internal. He carries forward the symbolic duty to complete the temple of his own character, knowing that death is a part of the plan, but not the end of the work. This is why Masons consider this degree sublime. It transforms the earlier lessons of self-improvement and knowledge into a matter of ultimate consequence, binding the brothers' moral journey to the timeless human struggle between betrayal and fidelity, mortality and legacy. The Master Mason's journey does not end with the raising. The ritual's power lingers in a collection of potent symbols, a visual language that continues to teach long after the ceremony concludes. Each object, carefully placed within the drama, serves as a key to unlock a deeper philosophical truth. Take the sprig of acacia, the humble evergreen discovered marking the symbolic grave. In the arid landscape of the Middle East, the acacia is a resilient tree, thriving where little else can. For the Mason, it becomes the ultimate emblem of immortality. Its evergreen nature whispers that life persists beyond apparent death, that the soul, like the hardy acacia, endures through harsh seasons. It is a small, living promise planted in the soil of loss. Then there is the coffin, a stark and unavoidable emblem. Its presence in the lodge is not meant to terrify, but to ground the brother in reality. It is a memento mori, a reminder of his own mortality. The lesson is not one of fear, but of perspective. By confronting the certainty of death within the safety of the allegory, a Mason is called to consider the quality of his life. How will he use his time? What legacy will he build with the years he has? The coffin frames existence not as infinite, but as precious, urging him to labor on his personal temple with greater diligence. Among the tools introduced in this degree, the trowel holds special significance. Unlike the gavel or the square, the trowel is an instrument of unity. It is used to spread the cement that binds stones together into a single, unshakable wall. In the hands of a master mason, the trowel becomes a symbol for spreading the cement of brotherly love and affection. It teaches that the true strength of the fraternity, and indeed of any worthy society, lies not in the individual stones, but in what binds them together. His duty expands from perfecting himself to actively fostering connection, smoothing over disagreements, and uniting the brethren in a common purpose. Finally, we come to the keystone. In architecture, the keystone is the central, wedge-shaped stone at the apex of an arch. It is the final piece placed, and it locks all the others into position, allowing the entire structure to bear immense weight. In the symbolism of the third degree, the keystone represents the completion of the individual's Masonic education. The rough ashlar has been shaped, measured, and now, with the lessons of fidelity and immortality, it is finally set into its destined place within the greater arch of the brotherhood and the divine plan. The keystone signifies that the Master Mason himself has become essential, that his integrity and knowledge now help to support the whole structure. Together, these symbols form a coherent philosophy. The acacia offers hope beyond the grave. The coffin provides sobering context for life. The trowel dictates how to live among others, and the keystone reveals the individual's role within a grand, interconnected design. They transform the complex ideas of mortality, legacy, and community into simple, unforgettable images, ensuring the lessons of the sublime degree are carried in the heart, not just the mind. Yet amidst the drama of degrees and the grandeur of pillars, one symbol remains uniquely personal. It is the first gift a Mason ever receives, and the last he will ever wear. The lambskin apron, presented to the newly initiated entered apprentice, is far more than a uniform. Its origins are humble and practical, rooted in the very workshops where this story began. The operative stonemason of the Middle Ages wore a heavy leather apron to protect his clothing from stone dust, chips, and the sharp tools of his trade. It was a badge of labor, a necessary shield for a hard day's work. But as the speculative mason transformed the craft, so too did he transform its most basic garment. The coarse leather was replaced with the skin of a lamb, a substance chosen for its profound symbolic weight. In many cultures and faiths, the lamb is an ancient emblem of innocence, gentleness, and purity. A mason's apron, therefore, is not a shield against physical debris, but a symbolic protector of his moral character. It signifies that the work he now undertakes, the labor of building a virtuous life, requires the purest of intentions. The color white reinforces this meaning, representing the clean slate upon which he is to inscribe a life of good deeds. When the worshipful master presents it, he often declares it to be more ancient than the golden fleece or Roman eagle, and more honorable than any other order that can be conferred upon you. This is not hyperbole within the lodge. It frames the apron as the ultimate badge of honor, one earned not by birth or battle, but by a voluntary commitment to self-improvement. How and where a mason wears his apron is a silent language of its own. For the entered apprentice, the apron is worn with the bib, or flap, turned up. This is a reminder of his new and incomplete state, like the raised flap of an unworked stone. Upon being passed to the degree of fellowcraft, the bib is turned down, symbolizing that he has begun to smooth that stone, to open himself fully to the influx of light and knowledge. As a master mason, he may wear it with the bib down and may also adorn it with specific symbols, like the 3 rosettes or the emblem of the compasses and square, marking his attainment of the sublime degree. The apron is never merely put on, it is invested with care, a ritual act that prepares the brother for the work to come. Over a lifetime of membership, the plain white lambskin may become a canvas for personal and lodge history. Senior officers and past masters often wear aprons with intricate silver or blue borders, symbolic embroidery, or specific designs that denote their rank and service. A mason might receive a decorated apron from his lodge or family to mark a significant anniversary. Yet, no matter how ornate it becomes, the foundation is always that same simple, white lambskin, a constant reminder that all honor in Freemasonry springs from those original, pure principles of innocence and honest labor. It is a tangible link between the man and the metaphor, between the brother sitting in the lodge and the ancient craftsman who inspired his journey. In a world of fleeting symbols, the apron endures as a permanent pledge, worn close to the heart, a quiet testament to the work a man has promised to do upon himself. This silent language of the apron is complemented by a more dynamic one, a secret lexicon of touch and word known only to the initiated. Beyond the grand allegories, Freemasonry has always required a practical method for one brother to recognize another, especially in times and places where a written certificate could be lost or forged. This need gave rise to the discrete mechanics of recognition, the grips, the passwords, and the tokens. Each of the 3 degrees possesses its own unique set, forming a ladder of secret knowledge that corresponds to a brother's progress. The grip, or token, is a specific way of clasping hands. It is not a casual handshake, but a precise sequence of pressures, placements, and sometimes subtle movements of the fingers. When executed correctly between 2 masons who know the same degree, it conveys immediate and certain identification without a single word being spoken. Accompanying each grip is a password, a word or phrase that is whispered during the handshake or given in response to a challenge. For the entered apprentice, the word is tied to the concept of stability and strength. For the fellowcraft, it relates to the pursuit of knowledge. For the master mason, it connects to the themes of loss and fidelity from the sublime legend. These elements are never written down in any Masonic ritual book available to the public. They are transmitted orally from brother to brother during the ceremonies, cementing the experience in memory. In an era before photography, national identification, or instant communication, these were not whimsical secrets. They were vital tools of trust. A traveling Mason arriving in a foreign city could approach a local lodge, give the proper signs, and through this exchange, prove he was a true brother entitled to aid, fellowship, and even financial assistance if in distress. It was a functional security system, built on the principle that certain knowledge could only be gained through legitimate initiation. But to view them merely as a historical security code misses their deeper resonance. The true power of the grip lies in the moment of its exchange, when two Masons, perhaps strangers moments before, share the correct token, a profound shift occurs. The handshake transcends greeting and becomes an act of mutual recognition on a fundamental level. It silently says, "I have walked the same path. I have taken the same obligations. I share your pursuit." This creates an instant, tangible bond of shared experience that fosters the famous Masonic sense of brotherhood. The passwords, too, carry symbolic weight beyond their literal sound. They are verbal keys that unlock not doors, but states of mind, reminding the brother of the core lesson of his degree each time he recalls or uses them. They are mnemonic devices for the philosophy itself. It is crucial to understand that Freemasons do not believe these grips and words hold any inherent magical power. They are not incantations. Their value is entirely symbolic and social. They are the living tissue of the fraternity, the active practice that transforms a philosophical society into a genuine community. The secret is not in the configuration of fingers or the syllable uttered. The secret is in the mutual trust and common journey that those symbols represent. In a world now saturated with digital passwords and biometric scans, these ancient, human-centered methods of recognition endure, not because they are superior technology, but because they are superior ritual, building a connection that no card or fingerprint ever could. Yet this silent language of trust finds its ultimate anchor in a single, open book. At the very center of every lodge, resting upon its altar, lies the volume of sacred law. For most Masonic lodges across the Western world, this is the Bible. Its presence is not merely decorative, it is foundational, the first of the three great lights that illuminate the lodge. This might seem confusing, even contradictory. Freemasonry is emphatically not a religion. It has no specific theology, offers no path to salvation, and does not preach a particular creed. So why does a holy book hold such a position of supreme honor? The answer lies in the Masonic concept of the Supreme Being, often referred to as the Grand Architect of the universe. To become a Freemason, a man must profess a belief in a higher power. This is the only religious requirement, and the fraternity is deliberately silent on what form that belief must take. The volume of sacred law represents that universal principle. It is the symbol of divine revelation, the rule and guide for a Mason's faith and conduct, whatever that faith may be. In a lodge with Christian members, it is the Bible. In a lodge with Jewish members, it may be the Torah. In a country like India, it could be the Vedas or the Quran. The specific text is less important than what it symbolizes, the divine moral law that governs all creation and against which a Mason squares his actions. During the opening of a lodge meeting, this book is not simply present, it is actively engaged. The worshipful master will often direct the chaplain or another officer to open it to a particular passage. One of the most common is the very beginning of the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. For Masons, regardless of their personal faith, this passage resonates with profound symbolic meaning. It speaks to the primacy of divine order, the creative power of the spoken principle, and the light that illuminates all men. The opened book serves as a constant, physical reminder that the labor undertaken in the lodge is conducted under the auspices of a higher moral order. It is part of the furniture of the lodge, as essential as the square and compasses. When a candidate takes his solemn obligations, his hand is placed upon this book, signifying that he calls upon the witness of his own deepest beliefs to uphold his promise. It is the bedrock upon which the allegorical temple is built. This elegant solution allows men of different faiths, who might disagree on fine points of doctrine, to meet in peace and brotherhood. They are united not by a shared dogma, but by a shared respect for the idea of a moral universe, symbolized by the open book on the altar. It transforms the lodge from a social club into a sacred space, where a man's word is his bond, and that bond is witnessed by the highest authority he recognizes. The open book on the altar is a fixed point, but the rituals themselves are fluid, living things passed from mouth to ear. This is the heart of the tradition's endurance, an unbroken chain of memory that no written script could ever replicate. In a world of digital prompts and teleprompters, a Masonic lodge meeting operates on a different principle entirely. The rituals are never read aloud from a book. Every officer, from the worshipful master in the east to the junior deacon by the door, must recite his lengthy, symbolic parts entirely from memory. This is not a casual recitation, it is a precise performance, a verbal choreography where a single missed word or misstep is noticed by every experienced brother in the room. The effort required is immense, often involving months of private study and rehearsal with a mentor. This commitment acts as a filter of sincerity, ensuring that those leading the lodge have internalized the lessons they are about to impart. The primary method for learning and performing these rituals is the catechism, a formal question and answer dialogue. One officer will pose a question, his voice carrying a specific rhythm and cadence, and another will respond with the exact, memorized answer. For example, during the opening of the lodge, the senior warden might be asked, "How stands the lodge?" His reply is not a simple, "It's open," but a structured declaration about its symbolic state, its purpose, and the duty of the brethren. This call and response format does more than just convey information. It creates a palpable energy in the room, a collective focus that transforms the space. The candidate experiencing the ritual is not watching a play with scripts. He is witnessing a lived tradition, where the words seem to emerge from the very history of the fraternity itself. This oral transmission is the craft's lifeblood. Before the formation of the Grand Lodge in the 18th century, each lodge operated with its own unique customs and wording, passed down locally. The standardization that followed was still an oral project, with grand lecturers traveling from lodge to teach the approved rituals by word of mouth. This practice ensured a remarkable consistency across continents and centuries, but it also did something more profound. It made every participating brother a guardian of the flame. By carrying the words within himself, he becomes a living link in the chain. The ritual is not owned by a book on a shelf, it is owned by the collective memory of the fraternity. This creates an intimate, binding connection between members. When you learn your part from an older brother, spending evenings in his home or after lodge, you are not just learning lines, you are receiving a personal trust. You are being entrusted with the very voice of the craft. The slight variations in delivery from one brother to another, the unique timbre of each voice reciting the same ancient questions, these are not flaws. They are proof of a living tradition. It is a system designed for fidelity, ensuring that the symbolic lessons of the square, the compass, and the lost master are transmitted not as dry history, but as a direct, experiential inheritance. The memory required is not for the sake of secrecy alone, but for the sake of depth, forcing each generation to fully absorb and embody the teachings before they can pass them on. The lodge room itself is a powerful teacher, but its lessons are fixed in place. For a deeper, more personal exploration, the brother turns to a different kind of map. After the solemnity of the ritual, the newly initiated entered apprentice is often seated before a large, colorful diagram known as the tracing board. This is the portable lodge, a two-dimensional canvas where every symbol from the ceremony is laid out for quiet study. Unlike the dynamic performance of the ritual, the tracing board invites contemplation. It is a visual summary, a key to decoding the allegorical landscape the brother has just entered. Historically, These boards were literally traced in chalk or charcoal on the lodge floor before a meeting and swept away afterward, a temporary sketch to preserve secrecy. Today, they are often permanent paintings or printed charts, but their purpose remains unchanged: to instruct. Let us walk through a typical tracing board for the first degree. At the top, you will almost always see the radiant sun and the crescent moon. These are not merely decorative. They represent the Masonic officers, the worshipful master in the east and the senior warden in the west, but on a cosmic scale. They symbolize the unending cycle of time, the constant alternation of light and darkness, and the rule of divine order over the lodge and the universe. Scattered around them are the stars, their number often corresponding to the officers and brethren, each a point of light contributing to the whole. Dominating the center are the two great pillars, Jachin and Bose, now seen in relation to the whole symbolic world. The checkered mosaic pavement stretches beneath them, a clear representation of the good and evil that will tile the brothers' path. You might see a rough ashlar, an uncut stone, resting near a perfect ashlar, a smooth, finished cube, illustrating the transformative journey from imperfection to a state of readiness. The working tools, the 24-inch gauge and the common gavel, are displayed prominently, their moral meanings now reinforced visually. A winding staircase may appear, hinting at the future ascent to the fellowcraft degree. For the new brother, sitting with an experienced mason who points to each element, the tracing board transforms a flood of sensory ritual into a structured lesson. The sun is no longer just a light in the east, it is a principle. The pavement is not just a floor, it is a philosophy. This quiet session after the drama is where the intellectual work truly begins, as the symbols move from spectacle to understanding, painted not on canvas, but on the mind. The three symbolic degrees are a complete system in themselves, yet for many brothers, they are merely the doorway. The world of Freemasonry extends far beyond the Blue Lodge into what are known as appendant bodies. These are separate organizations, each with their own unique rituals and histories, that a master mason may choose to join for further exploration. The two most prominent branches are the Scottish Rite and the York Rite, and understanding them clarifies a common point of confusion. They do not represent a higher rank or a superior level of masonry. Think of the Blue Lodge as the foundation and the central pillar of a grand, philosophical temple. The Scottish and York rites are like elaborate, beautiful wings added to that structure, each offering a different style of architecture and decoration, but all resting on that same, solid base. They provide additional avenues for study, fellowship, and dramatic ritual, expanding on the core themes introduced in the first 3 degrees. The Scottish Rite is perhaps the most famous of these branches, often associated with its 33 degrees of initiation. It is important to understand that these are not 33 sequential steps one climbs like a ladder. A master mason enters the Scottish Rite already at the 32nd degree, having been recognized for his proficiency. The degrees from the 4th through the 32nd are instead a series of dramatic plays or moral lessons, often presented in a single weekend or a series of meetings. They explore philosophical, historical, and ethical concepts in great depth, drawing from a wide range of sources including medieval knighthood, the Crusades, and ancient judicial systems. The rituals are often more theatrical, with elaborate costumes, sets, and music, designed to immerse the brother in a sweeping narrative that reinforces the lessons of fidelity, justice, and the search for truth. The 33rd degree is an honorary recognition for exceptional service, not something one petitions for. In contrast, the York Rite is more historical and sequential in its approach, directly continuing the legend of the lost master from the 3rd degree. It is organized into 3 distinct groups. The first is the chapter of Royal Arch Masons, which focuses on the completion of Solomon's Temple and the recovery of that which was lost. Its rituals are considered by many to be the natural and dramatic conclusion to the Master Mason degree. Answering questions the Blue Lodge leaves purposefully open. The second group is the Council of Cryptic Masons, which delves into the secrets surrounding the burial and preservation of the sacred treasures. Finally, the Commandery of Knights Templar represents a shift into overtly Christian chivalric orders, focusing on the virtues of faith, charity, and protection of the innocent, requiring a profession of Christian belief from its members. Each of these bodies uses its own unique and often breathtakingly intricate rituals to impart specialized lessons, whether about the philosophical underpinnings of law, the historical context of the craft, or the chivalric ideals of charity and defense. For a Mason who finds the symbolism of the Blue Lodge compelling, these appendant bodies offer a lifetime of further exploration, allowing him to walk in the allegorical footsteps of knights, judges, and ancient architects, all in the continued pursuit of building a more enlightened self. The Scottish Rite transforms the lodge into a grand stage. While the 3 Blue Lodge degrees are a profound personal allegory, the Scottish Rite expands the narrative into an epic series of philosophical plays. Its degrees, numbering from the 4th through the 32nd, are not a ladder of rank but a curriculum of the mind, presented as immersive theatrical experiences. A Master Mason entering the Scottish Rite does not begin again at the first step. He is welcomed directly into this advanced theater of ideas. The rituals are spectacular, often featuring elaborate costumes, symbolic sets, and stirring music designed to transport the participant into different historical and moral landscapes. One degree might cast you as a knight-errant in a medieval court, grappling with the complex duties of justice and mercy. Another could place you in an ancient philosophical school, debating the nature of truth and liberty. Yet another might involve you in a dramatic courtroom scene, weighing evidence and the ethical responsibilities of judgment. Each production is a lesson in allegory, exploring deep themes of personal responsibility, the pursuit of knowledge, and the proper use of power. This rite has attracted thinkers and leaders drawn to its intellectual depth, including presidents like Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Supreme Court justices. Beyond the drama, the Scottish Rite is renowned for its tangible commitment to the very ideals its rituals portray. Its philanthropy is legendary, particularly through the Scottish Rite Children's Hospitals, which provide free medical care, and its support for childhood language programs and scholarships. This turns philosophy into action, demonstrating that the lessons of the stage are meant to improve the world beyond the temple doors. At the apex of this system is the 33rd degree, an honor shrouded in wild conspiracy. The truth is far more noble and far less sinister. This degree is not something a Mason petitions for or works through. It is a singular recognition. It is conferred by the Supreme Council upon a very small number of Master Masons in recognition of a lifetime of exceptional service to the fraternity, to their community, or to humanity at large. The symbolism here is not about control, but about culmination, representing the pinnacle of Masonic dedication and charitable work. The members of this degree are not a secret government. They are teachers, doctors, philanthropists, and volunteers who have lived the Masonic principles to an extraordinary degree. Their reward is not power, but the honor of being seen as exemplars of the craft's highest aspirations. While the Scottish Rite paints on a broad philosophical canvas, the York Rite offers a different kind of journey, one that feels like a direct historical excavation. This path picks up the narrative thread left by the Master Mason degree and follows it deeper into the legend, culminating in a distinctly Christian chivalric tradition. It is a 3-part progression, each with its own vivid rituals and atmosphere. The journey begins in the chapter of Royal Archmasons. Here, the focus shifts from the loss of the Master Builder to the thrilling recovery of what was hidden. The ritual allegory is one of rediscovery and completion. Candidates participate in a symbolic rebuilding, representing the return of the Jewish people from captivity to Jerusalem. Their labor is not in vain, for they make a profound discovery within the ruins of the Old Temple, a vault containing priceless artifacts and, most importantly, the long-lost Master's word. For many Masons, this degree provides the satisfying culmination to the 3rd degree's haunting mystery, restoring the central secret and symbolizing the recovery of divine wisdom after a period of darkness and despair. It reinforces that true knowledge, though sometimes buried by time or tragedy, can be found again through perseverance and faithful labor. The next stage, the Council of Cryptic Masons, delves into the story of preservation. The degrees here, known as the Royal Master, Select Master, and Super Excellent Master, explore what happened between the loss and the recovery. They dramatize the efforts to secretly safeguard the sacred treasures and knowledge during a time of great peril. The rituals often take place in symbolic underground vaults or crypts, creating an atmosphere of solemn secrecy and urgent protection. The lessons center on fidelity, discretion, and the solemn responsibility of guarding profound truths, not for personal gain, but for the benefit of future generations. It answers the question of how wisdom survives the collapse of empires, passed down through chains of trustworthy custodians. This theme of guardianship sets the stage for the final, and most visually striking, branch of the York Rite, the commandery of Knights Templar. Here, the allegory makes a decisive leap from biblical symbolism to medieval history. The Knights Templar degree is unlike any other in mainstream Freemasonry, for it requires its members to profess a belief in the Christian faith. The ritual draws heavily on the lore of the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, the original medieval order of warrior monks formed to protect pilgrims in the Holy Land. Candidates are no longer stonemasons or builders, but are initiated as knights. The regalia is transformative, replacing the lambskin apron with the stark black and white mantle of a Templar, often accompanied by a sword, spurs, and a cross-emblazoned cape. The rituals are deeply immersive, involving solemn vows of chivalry, dramatic reenactments of Crusader history, and lessons on the knightly virtues of faith, charity, and unwavering defense of the innocent. The atmosphere is one of sacred martial discipline, a call to spiritual warfare against ignorance and tyranny. This connection to the historical Templars, an order shrouded in its own mysteries and tragic dissolution, adds a powerful layer of romantic legend to the experience. When these knights process in their full regalia, with swords drawn and capes flowing, they are not play-acting. They are physically embodying an ideal, using the pageantry of the past to inspire charitable and courageous conduct in the present. Together, the York Rite's three bodies form a complete narrative arc, from the recovery of ancient wisdom to its sacred preservation, and finally to its active defense through a life of Christian chivalry and service. The world of knighthood and ancient degrees is vast, yet it has historically been a realm for men alone. This leads to one of the most frequent and important questions about Freemasonry: where do women fit into this centuries-old tradition? The answer reveals a fascinating parallel universe of sisterhood and symbolism. Regular, or mainstream, Freemasonry has maintained its tradition as a fraternity for men. This practice stems from its historical roots in the all-male stonemasons guilds and the social structures of the 18th century when it was formally organized. The rituals, with their focus on brotherly love and male fellowship, were crafted within that context. For many centuries, the lodge was an exclusively masculine space. Yet, the desire for women to participate in the philosophical and charitable work of Masonry was powerful and inevitable. The solution was not integration, but the creation of distinct, separate orders that shared the core values while developing their own beautiful traditions. The most well-known of these is the Order of the Eastern Star. Founded in the United States in the late 19th century, it is the largest fraternal organization in the world that both men and women can join. Its membership is specifically designed around familial relationships. A chapter is composed of master masons in good standing and their female relatives, wives, mothers, daughters, sisters, and even granddaughters. This creates a unique dynamic where the Masonic family extends its bonds literally into the home. The rituals of the Eastern Star are entirely different from Blue Lodge Masonry. Instead of the tools of the builder, they center on 5 biblical heroines: Ada, Ruth, Esther, Martha, and Electa. Each represents a cardinal virtue: fidelity, constancy, loyalty, faith, and love. The ceremony uses their stories to teach moral lessons, and the emblem of the order is a 5-pointed star. Each point a different color representing one of these exemplary women. The atmosphere is often described as more sentimental and familial, focusing on service, charity, and the strengthening of spiritual values within the home and community. Their charitable work is immense, often supporting projects related to children, education, and disaster relief, operating in a beautiful partnership with the Masonic lodges. Alongside this mixed gender order, there emerged another powerful path: all-female Masonic obediences. Organizations like the Honorable Fraternity of Ancient Freemasons, founded in the United Kingdom, and Le Droit Humain, established in France, took a different approach. They are not auxiliary to men's masonry. They are independent, sovereign Masonic bodies that initiate women on an equal footing. They practice rituals that are very similar in structure and symbolism to those of regular Freemasonry, with the same 3 degrees of entered apprentice, fellow craft, and master mason. They use the same tools, the square and compasses, and explore the same allegories of personal development and moral architecture. The crucial difference is that their lodges are composed entirely of women, from the worshipful master in the East to the youngest entered apprentice. They argue that the universal principles of Freemasonry, the search for light and the building of character, are not exclusive to one gender. These sisters in the craft perform their own rituals, run their own charities, and contribute to their communities with the same dedication as any male lodge. They have built a vibrant, global network of lodges where women can experience the transformative journey of Masonic initiation and find deep, philosophical sisterhood. So, while the doors of a regular Masonic lodge remain closed to women, the spirit of the craft has inspired magnificent temples of its own, where the same eternal truths are explored through different, yet equally profound, symbols and stories. But this very language of secrecy, so rich in symbolic meaning, has also cast a long and distorted shadow. For centuries, Freemasonry has served as the ultimate canvas for conspiracy theories, a blank screen upon which societies project their deepest anxieties about hidden power. The leap from a private ritual to an alleged global conspiracy is a story of fear, misunderstanding, and the irresistible allure of a good secret. It began not in ancient times, but in the crucible of political revolution. In the late 1700s, as the fires of the American and French revolutions reshaped the world, frightened aristocrats and clergy sought an explanation for the collapse of the old order. They found a convenient villain in the Freemasons. Writers like John Robison in Scotland and the Abbé Berulle in France published sensational texts claiming the Masons were not a benign fraternity, but the visible arm of a much older, more sinister force, the Bavarian Illuminati. This small Enlightenment-era secret society, founded by Adam Weishaupt and suppressed by the government in the 1780s, was falsely portrayed as having survived and infiltrated Masonic lodges worldwide. According to the theory, these illuminated Masons were using their networks to overthrow monarchies and religions in a calculated plot to control the world. The logic was seductive in its simplicity. Here was a group with secret handshakes, mysterious ceremonies, and members who included influential thinkers, politicians, and military leaders. When men like George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, and the Marquis de Lafayette, all Freemasons helped lead revolutions, it was easy for conspiracy theorists to connect the dots in a sinister pattern. They mistook correlation for causation, seeing a grand design where there was only a shared interest in Enlightenment ideals like liberty, fraternity, and self-governance. The symbolism itself fed the frenzy. To an outsider, the all-seeing eye on the dollar bill, the compass and square, the cryptic aprons and pillars, all seemed like evidence of a coded plan. What were normal symbols of moral guidance and divine watchfulness were reinterpreted as markers of a clandestine power structure. The fact that Masons did not publicly discuss their rituals was taken not as respect for a solemn tradition, but as proof they had something monstrous to hide. This narrative perfectly illustrates how conspiracy theories work. They take grains of truth, the existence of secrecy, the prominence of some members, and weave them into a grand, emotionally satisfying story that explains complex world events. It is easier to believe a small group of men in a room is pulling the strings than to accept the chaotic, multifaceted nature of historical change. The theory offers a clear villain and a clear explanation, providing order in a frighteningly disordered world. But does this canvas hold up under scrutiny? The central claim of Masonic world domination collapses against the organization's fundamental reality. Freemasonry is not a monolithic, command and control entity. It is profoundly decentralized. Each Grand Lodge is sovereign, governing the lodges in its own region or country. There is no global Masonic pope, no central committee issuing orders. A lodge in Ohio has no authority over a lodge in France, and neither has any connection to a lodge in Japan. Their primary activities are the rituals we have described, followed by a shared meal, and organizing charitable work. The notion that these local groups, focused on personal improvement and community fundraising, are secretly coordinating a geopolitical takeover is logistically absurd. Their secrets are symbolic, not strategic. They are passwords to a philosophical journey, not blueprints for economic control. The enduring power of the conspiracy says more about us than about them. It reveals a human hunger to find pattern and intention behind the veil of history, and a timeless suspicion of any group that chooses to keep part of its life private. In the end, the Masons have been accused of ruling a world they simply strive to understand, one moral lesson at a time. A Mason's influence is measured not in covert meetings, but in the visible legacy of his work. The list of famous Freemasons reads like a who's who of history's most celebrated innovators, artists, and leaders. George Washington, the nation's first president, was inaugurated while wearing his Masonic apron, a profound public statement linking the new republic's foundation to the fraternity's ideals of integrity and brotherhood. His fellow revolutionary, Benjamin Franklin, was not just a statesman but a prolific publisher of Masonic texts, using his press to spread Enlightenment ideas that were deeply aligned with Masonic philosophy. Across the Atlantic, Sir Winston Churchill was initiated into the craft as a young man, and the principles of perseverance and duty that marked his leadership echoed the Masonic virtues of fortitude. This pattern extends far beyond politics. The musical genius Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was a devoted Mason, and his enchanting opera, The Magic Flute, is a vibrant, public love letter to the rituals and symbols of his lodge, filled with allegorical trials and celebrations of light over darkness. Even the conquest of new frontiers bears the craft's imprint. Astronaut Buzz Aldrin, the second man to walk on the moon, was a Mason, and he carried a specially deputized lodge warrant with him on the Apollo 11 mission, symbolically extending the fraternity's reach to another celestial body. The connection is not evidence of a cabal, but of a common thread. These men were drawn not to a secret plan for power, but to a system that championed reason, self-improvement, and charitable service. Their membership often provided a network of like-minded individuals and a philosophical framework that reinforced their own public pursuits. Mozart found inspiration for his art in Masonic symbolism. Aldrin found a profound way to symbolize human aspiration. Washington and Franklin saw in the lodge's principles a blueprint for civic virtue. Their stories transformed the Freemasons from a shadowy myth into a human institution, one that attracted great minds precisely because it encouraged them to build, to create, and to serve in the full light of day. These rituals survived revolutions and world wars, but can they endure the age of the smartphone? The persistence of such elaborate ceremonies in our fast-paced, digital world seems almost paradoxical. Yet, their endurance is not an accident of history. It is a testament to their function as a unique and powerful technology, not of information, but of transformation. In a time when connection is often measured in likes and follows, Freemasonry offers something profoundly different, a bond forged not through shared content, but through shared experience. The ritual itself is the engine of this connection. When men from different walks of life, a software engineer, a teacher, a retired soldier, stand together in a lodge, reciting the same ancient words and performing the same symbolic actions, they are participating in a collective act of meaning-making. This synchronous, physical engagement creates a psychological anchor, a rare moment of unified focus in a fragmented world. The handshake learned in the lodge carries more weight than a digital friend request because it was earned through a mutual journey of vulnerability and trust. It forges a social bond that is deep precisely because it is inefficient, requiring time, presence, and personal investment in an era often defined by the opposite. Beyond fellowship, the rituals provide a structured framework for confronting questions that apps cannot answer. The modern world offers endless distraction from life's ultimate mysteries, but the Masonic degrees force a deliberate, guided confrontation with them. The checkered floor is a constant, silent teacher about navigating duality. The legend of the third degree is a masterclass in contemplating mortality, fidelity, and legacy. In a society that often avoids discussions of death and purpose, the Lodge creates a safe, symbolic space to explore these themes with gravity and hope. It offers a map, written in allegory and symbol, for the inner journey. This is why the tools remain relevant. The Common Gavel is a more potent reminder to control one's temper than any productivity podcast, because you didn't just hear about it, you were given it as a sacred trust. The square and compasses are not archaic drawings. They are mental tools for daily ethical navigation, asking a brother to measure his actions and circumscribe his passions in real time. Of course, to remain vital, the fraternity must also speak to new generations. Lodges worldwide are thoughtfully adapting their outreach and language while guarding the core ritual work. You might find a lodge with a website, social media presence, or open house events, demystifying their presence in the community. The language used in conversations may shift to clarify that brotherly love encompasses mutual respect and charity, and that the pursuit of light aligns with a lifelong search for knowledge and truth. The focus on building men of character is framed in contemporary terms of emotional resilience, community leadership, and ethical integrity. Yet, the heart of the experience, the 3 degrees performed from memory in the traditional manner, remains unchanged. This is the crucial balance, updating the vessel without spilling the ancient wine. The rituals are preserved not out of stubborn tradition, but because their transformative power is contained in their specific, time-tested form. The moment the hoodwink is removed, the moment the grip is given, these experiences lose their potency if they become merely historical reenactments or simplified seminars. Their value lies in their unbroken lineage, in the palpable sense that you are walking the same symbolic path as countless seekers before you. In a world of constant upgrades and planned obsolescence, there is a profound comfort and strength in something that refuses to be ephemeral, that offers a stable, symbolic architecture for a meaningful life. The Lodge becomes a sanctuary not from the modern world, but for the timeless self within it. This profound sense of sanctuary, however, has not always been respected by the outside world. The very secrecy that defines the Masonic journey has, throughout history, made the fraternity a target for suspicion, fear, and outright persecution. These darker chapters reveal a recurring pattern where the private quest for light is mistaken for a public conspiracy against power. The opposition began almost as soon as organized Freemasonry stepped into the public eye. In the year 1738, Pope Clement XII issued the first papal bull against the craft, titled In Eminenti. It declared excommunication for any Catholic who joined a Masonic lodge. The Vatican's reasoning was clear and set a precedent for centuries of religious opposition. The Church viewed the Masonic requirement of belief in a supreme being as a dangerously vague form of natural religion, one that could undermine specific Christian doctrine. The secret oaths of loyalty taken within the lodge were seen as potentially superseding a Catholic's vows to the Church and the Pope. Furthermore, the practice of men from different Christian denominations, and even different faiths, meeting as equals in a sacred-seeming ritual, was viewed as a threat to religious orthodoxy and authority. This ban was reaffirmed by multiple popes over the centuries, creating a deep and lasting rift between the Catholic Church and Freemasonry that would only begin to soften in very recent decades. Political fear soon joined religious doctrine as a motive for persecution. In the young United States, a bizarre and tragic incident sparked the first major political movement built entirely on opposing the fraternity. In the year 1826, a disgruntled Freemason named William Morgan in Batavia, New York, threatened to publish a book revealing all the order's rituals and secrets. Before he could do so, Morgan mysteriously disappeared. Though the facts were murky and local Masons were accused, the public outcry was immediate and explosive. The event, known as the Morgan Affair, tapped into a deep well of anxiety about elite control in the new democracy. It fueled the rise of the anti-Masonic Party, which became, for a brief but intense period in the 1830s, a major political force. This was more than a protest, it was a moral panic. Anti-Masonic newspapers spread sensational stories. Politicians campaigned on promises to root out Masonic influence in government. Lodges across the northeastern United States were forced to close their doors as members resigned in fear of social or economic ruin. The movement argued that secret oaths were incompatible with the transparent ideals of a republic, that the Brotherhood's private loyalties corrupted public duty. While the party itself eventually faded, absorbed into the emerging Whig Party, the episode left a permanent scar on the American Masonic landscape and proved how quickly a fraternity dedicated to building character could be painted as a shadowy cabal tearing the social fabric apart. The 20th century, however, would witness persecution of a far more brutal and systematic kind. Totalitarian regimes, both fascist and communist, recognized in Freemasonry everything they despised and feared. The Nazis, upon seizing power in Germany, immediately moved to crush the lodges. In their twisted ideology, Freemasonry was part of the Jewish Bolshevik conspiracy to dominate the world. They confiscated priceless Masonic libraries and ritual objects, many of which were displayed in hateful, anti-Masonic exhibitions, to ridicule the craft. More horrifically, they required Freemasons to register with the police, and records show that in concentration camps, some prisoners were forced to wear a red triangle, not for being Jewish or political, but specifically for being a Mason. The Brotherhood's ideals of universal brotherhood, individual enlightenment, and tolerance were direct contradictions to the Nazi cult of racial purity, blind obedience, and state worship. Similarly, in the Soviet Union and its satellite states, Freemasonry was declared a bourgeois counter-revolutionary organization. The communist state, which demanded total allegiance, could not tolerate any alternative source of loyalty or philosophical inquiry. Lodges were banned, their members imprisoned, exiled, or executed. The secret police meticulously hunted down former Masons, seeing their international connections and independent thinking as inherent threats to the total control of the party. In both cases, the persecutors understood the power of symbolism better than anyone. They did not attack the Masons because they were powerless, but because the very existence of a society teaching free thought, moral integrity, and private fellowship represented a silent resistance to the tyranny of the state. The lodge's light, however small, was a challenge to their enforced darkness. These waves of opposition, from papal edicts to political purges, all stem from a common root, the fundamental misunderstanding of Masonic secrecy. To outsiders, secrecy implies conspiracy. To the brother inside the lodge, that secrecy is the sacred container for a personal, transformative experience. The oath is not taken to hide a plan for domination, but to protect the profound emotional and intellectual impact of the ritual journey, ensuring each candidate discovers its lessons for himself, free from spoilers. The opposition highlights a timeless tension between the individual's right to private association and the demands of monolithic institutions, whether religious or political, for absolute conformity. It reminds us that the quest for personal light has always, and may always, draw the suspicion of those who believe they alone should hold the torch. The most profound Masonic ritual is not performed in a lodge room at all. It happens in the quiet handing of a check to a struggling family, in the laughter of a child receiving free medical care, and in the silent promise of a scholarship that opens a door. For all its focus on symbolic architecture, Freemasonry's most enduring structure is one of charity, a living, breathing testament to its core principles put into daily practice. This philanthropy is the Brotherhood's ritual of helping others, and its scale is staggering. It begins locally, in the heart of every lodge. A discreet fund, often called the Charity of Benevolence, is maintained for members and their families facing hardship, illness, or sudden loss. This is the first line of defense, a direct application of brotherly love and relief, but the reach extends far beyond their own. Lodges sponsor community food banks, organize blood drives, donate to local schools and libraries, and provide volunteers for countless civic projects. This local work is the foundation, the everyday mortar that binds the fraternity to its community. From this foundation rise monumental institutions recognized worldwide. Perhaps the most visible symbol is the Shriners' Hospitals for Children. Founded by the ancient Arabic order of the Nobles of the Mystic Shrine, an appendant Masonic body, this network of 21 hospitals provides absolutely free, world-class orthopedic care, burn treatment, and spinal cord injury rehabilitation to children, regardless of the family's ability to pay. Since its founding, it has treated over 1.4 million children. The sight of the Shriner in his fez, driving a tiny car in a parade, is not just whimsy. It is a mobile advertisement for a billion-dollar mission of mercy, funded entirely by philanthropy. Similarly, the Scottish Rite, Northern Jurisdiction, maintains a national network of childhood language programs, providing diagnosis and treatment for children with speech and language disorders. Their philanthropy also supports the Masonic Cancer Center at the University of Minnesota, a world leader in oncology research and patient care. These are not minor donations, they are transformative investments in human health and potential, funded by millions of Masons passing the hat in lodge meetings and community events. The commitment extends powerfully into the future through education. Grand lodges and individual lodges administer vast scholarship programs, helping thousands of students afford college or vocational training every single year. These scholarships are not merely financial transactions, they are investments in character, often awarded based on a blend of academic merit, community service, and personal integrity, the very qualities the fraternity seeks to cultivate. This educational support ensures the Masonic legacy is one of empowerment, lifting others toward their own light. How does a fraternity focused on self-improvement fund such vast works? The answer lies in the collective power of its members. There are no mysterious billion-dollar endowments from shadowy sources. The money is raised dollar by dollar, through lodge dues, charitable events, pancake breakfasts, and direct contributions from brothers who believe in the work. It is a democratic philanthropy, powered by the many for the good of the many. This charitable footprint is the ultimate, unspoken degree of Freemasonry. The rituals of the lodge teach a man to square his actions and circumscribe his passions. Charity is where he takes those tools out into the world and begins to build. The symbolic level that teaches equality in the lodge finds its real-world expression in providing care to a child regardless of background. The plumb line of personal integrity extends into the upright stewardship of donated funds. The trowel that spreads the cement of brotherly love within the lodge is used to bind the community together through service. In this light, philanthropy is not an add-on or a public relations effort. It is the natural, necessary outcome of the Masonic journey. A man who has symbolically confronted his own mortality in the third degree is perhaps more keenly aware of the suffering of others. A brother who has pledged to aid a worthy distressed sibling extends that pledge to his wider human family. The secret work of perfecting the inner temple finds its fullest meaning when it results in the open-handed work of healing the outer world. The true master's word, it seems, is spoken not in a whisper, but in the language of compassionate action. Yet this vast charitable work is mirrored by an equally rich diversity in how the rituals themselves are lived and breathed. While the core symbols of the square and compasses are universal, the experience inside a lodge can feel remarkably different depending on which corner of the globe you find yourself in. The ritual is not a monolith, it is a language spoken with countless local accents. In England, the home of organized Freemasonry, the prevailing style is one of solemn precision. The emulation ritual, practiced by the majority of English lodges, is performed with an almost liturgical formality. Every movement, every gesture, every single word is delivered with exacting uniformity. Brothers spend years perfecting their delivery to ensure there is no deviation, no personal flourish. The atmosphere is one of deep reverence and tradition, where the beauty lies in the flawless execution of a centuries-old pattern. It feels less like a theatrical performance and more like the careful observance of a sacred rite, where the power is in the perfect repetition itself. Cross the English Channel into France, however, and the air in the lodge changes dramatically. French Freemasonry, or Masonry, has a long history of blending the ritual with vigorous philosophical debate. The formal ceremony is often followed by what is called a planche, a prepared paper or lecture on a symbolic, historical, or social topic, which is then opened for discussion among all the brethren. The lodge becomes a forum for the exchange of ideas, where the symbols of the ritual are analyzed, debated, and applied to contemporary life. The tone is more intellectual, more discursive. The ritual is the gateway to a conversation, not the conclusion of one. This philosophical emphasis stems from the French Enlightenment's profound influence on the craft there, viewing Masonry as an active school of thought. Travel to Latin America, and you may encounter a different energy still. In many lodges in Brazil, Mexico, or Argentina, the formality of the ritual can be interwoven with a warmer, more familial sense of fellowship. While the ceremonies are taken with utmost seriousness, the social bonds before and after are intensely emphasized. The shared meal, the gape, might be livelier, the conversations more personal. The universal symbols are interpreted through a lens of local culture and social values, sometimes incorporating a more pronounced sense of spiritual exploration or community activism. The ritual is the heart of the meeting, but the heartbeat is the connection between the brothers. Even in the United States, regional variations exist. A lodge in a small New England town might have a style closer to the English emulation, steeped in the history of the early republic. A lodge in a vibrant southern city might blend that tradition with a distinctive local character and emphasis on hospitality. What remains constant across all these variations is the foundational allegory, the 3 degrees, and the core working tools. A master mason from Tokyo would recognize the ceremony in a lodge in Oslo, even if the language, cadence, and surrounding customs felt foreign. The rough and perfect ashlars, the winding staircase, the legend of the 3rd degree, these are the common tongue. But how those symbols are delivered, discussed, and integrated into the life of the lodge is beautifully colored by the culture that houses it. This adaptability is not a weakness, but the craft's great strength. It proves that the pursuit of light is not bound by a single culture or a rigid style. It can be found in the silent, perfect recitation of an ancient text, in the heated debate of a philosophical salon, or in the warm, communal embrace of shared purpose. The temple of character is built with the same symbolic tools everywhere, but its architecture always reflects the landscape of the human heart that builds it. The line between a dangerous secret and a simple private matter has never been more blurred. In our digital age, where personal data is currency and social media demands transparency, the very idea of a closed society can feel like an affront. This forces a crucial distinction, one that lies at the heart of Freemasonry's modern identity. The so-called secrets, the grips and passwords, are functionally trivial. Their power is entirely symbolic, a shared language of recognition that holds no strategic or political value. A conspiracy cannot be built on a handshake. The true privacy of the craft is something far deeper. It is the sanctity of the ritual experience itself. Think of it like a surprise party. Knowing there will be a party is not the secret. The secret is the moment you walk through the door and are met with that collective shout of celebration. If you know exactly what will happen, when and how, the entire emotional impact is lost. The Masonic ritual is designed as a profound personal journey, a sequence of allegorical discoveries meant to provoke introspection and growth. To publicly broadcast every word and action would be to rob every future candidate of that powerful, unspoiled discovery. It would turn a transformative rite of passage into a mere historical documentary. This is the privacy they protect, not to hide, but to preserve the potency of a personal encounter with symbol and story. Yet, tradition cannot exist in a vacuum. Grand lodges worldwide now navigate a delicate balance, embracing a new era of openness to counter centuries of misinformation. You will find detailed websites explaining their history and charitable work, social media pages showcasing community events, and open houses where curious neighbors can tour a lodge, ask questions, and meet Masons in plain clothes. This transparency demystifies their presence, showing the fraternity for what it is, a community organization focused on fellowship and service. The goal is to shift public perception from seeing a secret society to understanding a private association. much like a book club's internal discussions or a support group's shared confidences. The core experiential rituals, however, remain guarded within the lodge. This is the non-negotiable center. The compromise is clear. We will be open about who we are and what we do in the world, but we will protect the intimate, symbolic process of how we grow as individuals. This approach reframes the conversation for a skeptical century. It asks the public to respect a space for meaningful, unrecorded human experience in a world that too often values the performative over the profound. From the dusty quarries of medieval Europe to the quiet contemplation of a modern lodge, the journey of these rituals reveals a remarkable truth. The real enigma of the Freemasons was never about hidden maps or global domination. It is a far more human and enduring mystery, the age-old quest to build a meaningful life. What began as the practical signs of a traveling stonemason evolved into a profound allegorical system, transforming the square, the compass, and the level from tools that measure stone into tools that measure character. The secret room is not a headquarters for conspiracy, but a sanctuary for reflection. The grip is not a key to power, but a handshake of shared understanding. For over 300 years, this tradition has offered a structured path away from the noise of the world, a space where men can confront timeless questions of mortality, integrity, and purpose through powerful, shared story. It is a testament to our universal need for community, for symbols that guide us, and for a personal craft of becoming better than we were. So the next time you hear a whisper about Masonic secrets, look beyond the myth. Consider instead the universal themes they guard so carefully: the longing for light, the dignity of labor on the self, and the bonds of brotherly love that build not empires, but better neighbors. If your curiosity is piqued, the mystery is closer than you think. Many Masonic halls have public libraries or host open houses, offering a genuine look at a history often shrouded in fiction. The greatest secrets, it turns out, are often the truths we already know but must learn for ourselves. If you enjoyed this exploration into history's hidden corners, please like this video and subscribe for more journeys into the past. Let us know in the comments, what is history's greatest mystery to you?